Everybody, welcome to our weekly whatever. This is an opportunity for me to address some things that maybe we do get to talk about on the podcast, maybe we don't. Put in a little bit of a different format, and we're going to read a little bit of theory, but not Marx. Don't got time for any of that. So let's kind of just jump in. So on the show this week, if you haven't listened to it yet, we discussed two things. One of them is how a bunch of Afghanistan districts are falling to the Taliban. Kind of saw that coming. Apologies for destabilizing your country for the last 20 years. We also talk about the National Guard. I'm gonna do a little bit more talk about the National Guard because Nate and I talk about Afghanistan constantly, and to be honest, like it's just there's only so much you can really say about it. So, the National Guard I wanted to bring up though, because there's two different things that are happening now. Here I have this thing about a reduction of National Guard numbers. The number reduction isn't too big; it's a couple hundred soldiers, but that's not the direction you need to go in with the National Guard. There's going to be a lot of people who roll their eyes at me, and certainly in on our show we talk about how the military sucks. But like, if there's going to be chunks of the military that should in some way exist, you've got the Coast Guard and the National Guard, guard units, people who stay here and make sure things are taken care of. Now, National Guard, if you're not aware, is not necessarily just a just it's not just for riots. Basically, it's not just for making sure that there's that the cops have a third wave to after they get their asses handed to them. Even though usually the cops are better strapped up than any soldiers are in those situations. But the National Guard also shows up when there's in the last year because of COVID, whenever the federal vaccine services started to roll around, they would get the National Guard. Hey, activate some of your National Guard people. You need medics, you need logistics people, you need just bodies that can move things from one place to another. The National Guard is great at that because they're just people who just like, you're already here, I can tap you and bring you in for a couple of weeks and then send you back home. Like it's a it's just a pop your uniform on and be a soldier for a minute because we really just need bodies to be able to do this. We need people who understand a rank structure and command staff and people who are in charge, and so the way that the military works is great for something like that. When you have a flood, we need to get people in. We need to do rescue ops, fires, civil unrest, vaccination stations, all this kind of stuff. The National Guard has been utilized about 5 times more than it has in the past. The National Guard hasn't been utilized this much since World War II. So the question becomes, why are they cutting numbers? And the second question is, why are there so many people in the National Guard who are reliant on food stamps? Not just, this isn't just like twice as many, on average, National Guard and Reserve, the part-time soldiers, are, they have to choose between paying bills and feeding their family. And the thing is when you're in the military, you pay your bills because if you fuck up your bills and you fuck up your your credit score or anything like that, you lose your security clearance if you have one. Security clearances are really big in the military. I used to have one. A good chunk of jobs in the military requires some kind of security clearance. It's not too hard to do. An SF-86 is not hard to fill out. It's time consuming. It's kind of irritating, but for the most part, anybody can fill one out. But man, if you fuck up your bills, you're fucked. You'll lose your security clearance, and you might not ever get it back. And if your job is relying on a security clearance, my job was relying on a security clearance, you goddamn right I have a good credit score. I have to. That's just the reality of it. So when you're a National Guardsman, you end up maybe just, hey, to protect myself in the future, I'm going to go ahead and have to miss a couple of meals. Now, the reason why these things happen is because the military does, the military has all kinds of benefits, right? Our base pay is kind of shit, and that is because we have all kinds of other benefits. Now, the base pay being shit is more of a, hey, this is great for active duty people, because active duty, you make some money doing it, but you don't have to pay for housing. Even if you don't live on base, they will just give you money. It's called BAH, Basic Allowance for Housing. I got it when I was in Iraq. They just gave me $800, $830 something a month, I think it was, just based on the zip code that I lived in. So my rent was able to be paid while I was gone. I had a roommate too, so it was great. I got to pocket half of it and write him checks for the other half. So you have this, you have all of these great benefits that are available to active duty people, but the National Guard ends up getting fucked. Because what happens is the National Guard, you get the BAH after you do 30 days of active duty. And I've had this happen to me because I've done 30 days of active duty just as a reservist. And you get a set of orders for 15 days and another set of orders for 15 days. And the reason they break it up like that is because when you cascade from one set of orders to another, you're not doing 30 days. They don't have to pay you BAH. They don't have to pay you BAH. They don't necessarily have to give you per diem, depending on what your orders say. Sometimes you might have to be paying for your own food. And you're not going to get healthcare. You're not going to get any kind of healthcare until you've rolled over to those 30 days. So some National Guardsmen probably have gotten some of these, maybe the ones that were working at the Capitol riots and the everything post January 6th. But I don't know, and it wouldn't surprise me to find out that these guys are getting fucked. And what happens, when you are somebody who is trying to have a career, like I have a career, I work in IT, and if you keep getting dragged away from that, it's hard to get back into it. Depending on the company, they may just hey, he's gone. This person's gone. They've been gone for 2 months. Turns out we don't actually need their job, so just that job no longer exists. And then you come back from active duty, and guess what? You're job hunting because your job no longer exists. They don't even have to offer you another job, depending on the legalities of the state and federal things going on there. I've had to go through that before. It fucking sucks. I lost a job after I came back from Iraq and had to go on a job hunt because my position just didn't exist anymore. And they offered me to work in their warehouse for half the hours at half the pay. Yeah, I went and found another job. So I feel like I've put out as much as I can about how important the National Guard is. The National Guard is important. The overseas federal shit, whatever. Fuck all that. We don't need them to go do all that. But the stuff here, the stuff's when shit floods, when shit catches on fire, when you just need, it's like, God, we just need bodies to be able to do these things. That's what the National Guard is there for. And cutting this is not going to, help any of that. But two, you're fucking over your soldiers. They're not going to want to stay. Why would they want to stay? They're not getting paid. Their jobs are disappearing. Or, maybe they just come back and they get called up again. They can't advance in their careers. They can't do all of these things. The military is basically fucking them over. Being a reservist and National Guardsman, the great thing is that you're a part-time soldier. And as a reservist, I did 20 years in the Army. I still have a career, though, outside of it, because I was able to build a career outside of it despite my deployments, because they were kind of, spaced far enough. But, man, the National Guard's been getting fucked in the last year, and it's really rough to watch that happen. So I wanted to talk about the National Guard because it's one of those, when people want to abolish the military, it's one of those, yes, but let's keep a National Guard. This is your militia. All the militia that all these people cry about in, about the Second Amendment. This is the militia. This is what they were talking about. This is how, the military was set up in, the 1800s. You just had National Guards that, were part of the state. We didn't really have a federal military, I think, until World War I, a big one. Because guess what? The founders didn't want that. The founders did not want a big military. But you know what? What a bunch of racist, slave-owning pieces of shit that shit into holes thought, I don't give a fuck. I'm probably smart. There's a good chance any of you who are watching this probably have a higher IQ than most of our founding fathers, just by the grace of the fact that it's 2001 or it's 2021. You probably have good nutrition and good schooling, probably better than what they had. So look, this is a time when they didn't even know you needed to wash your fucking hands to get rid of germs. So we live in a much better society than those racist shithead fucks. So fuck them. All right, next up. Oh, General Miley. Now look, this is not about to turn into a General Miley Stan account in any way, shape, or form. However, I do like that General Miley went in front of Congress and basically told Matt Gaetz and Tom Cotton to go shove it up their asses, because he's doing, the Republicans, they think that all the military is woke because the military people in the army are like, hey, you should really stop saying slurs and being terrible to women. And now a bunch of Republican Congress people are like, no, that's against our free speech for some reason. Again, shit talk the military all you want, but at times, as much as people say we're not a social experiment, we're 100% a social experiment. We are the best social experiment that could ever exist because we get people from all walks of life, all races, all over the country. Like, we are one of the best military melting pots where everybody is forced to get along in one way or another. And anything that we do to make that easier is probably for the best. So I would suggest going out and finding what this guy had to say, if anything, just to say that, just to watch Matt Gaetz do his little, with his seven head and all of his forehead wrinkles, doing his weird house elf kind of look. But, and again, Miley, I mean, fuck anybody that's got stars, especially fuck anybody who's got that many stars. But he is basically saying, look, the idea is that if we are to better ourselves and if we are to better understand the culture of the military, if somebody is in there and they're pissed, why wouldn't you ask why they're pissed? And say, oh, yeah, people are like really terrible and racist towards you, and you get passed up for things like that's literally critical race theory. That is, the racism that is inherent not just in the military but in our society in general. Nobody, your Republicans don't really want to concern themselves with that, but mostly it's because they don't know what the fuck critical race theory means. One thing that I really liked about Miley is he talked about how he read Mao and he read Lenin and he read Marx, and none of those things made him a communist, which I have not read any of them. And technically, I'm not a communist, but I'm probably a little bit further left than a 4-star general. So I want to say, I want to bring that up because, me, I like theory as well. I just like a very specific kind of theory. And the theory that I like are zines written sometime in the last, 100 years. The reason why I like to dig into the well of anti-war zines and women's liberation stuff and pamphlets on union organizing is because there are so many, anybody can get a copy of Communist Manifesto. If you're watching this on the internet, you can go read the Communist Manifesto. It's online. Probably all the Das Kapital and Mao's Little Red Books and whatever Lenin wrote. I'm sure you can find all of those things. But personally, I am much more of a fan of reading zines because these are the ideas that the people are having. They're not always good, as we're going to kind of go through here. So this week we're going to be reading from a zine called Counterdraft. So this piece that we're going to be talking about, Counterdraft, is this piece has been around. I found it in a lot of different zines, basically. So this is something that's been printed in a couple of other places. I'm just pulling it from Counterdraft because I think this was the second or third place that I found it. And I was like, cool, I like this. And also, it's readable. Some of these scans not very very readable, but you can see that we've got some kind of grease stains on these. So let's go ahead and we'll do our theory lesson here real quick. All right. Counterdraft has just received this important communication concerning the GI movement. Muskogee, Oklahoma, February 12, 13, and 14. Almost 300 black, brown, red, white, and yellow GIs from all branches of the armed forces met secretly on February 12 through 14 at a 450-acre ranch a few miles from here. The meeting was quickly and quietly scheduled in order to provide maximum security for the GIs who preferred to remain anonymous. A spokesperson for the Black Flag Society, an interstate organization of anarchists, explained, quote, that's the way we do business. No names, no announcements. The pigs know nothing and we can get it on. End quote. Getting it on, not in the Marvin Gaye kind of way. Getting it on as in doing subversion against the military because you're a bunch of leftists. We're talking 50 years ago, man. Language changes. The plenary session began at 11 p.m. Friday night with an address by a GI who identified himself as an Airman First Class Jones from March Air Force Base. He laid out plans for an organization known as MOM, Movement to Off the Military, like movement to off as in like you're gonna off them. I assume. I don't think that they're going to try to shoot the military in the head, but there's a lot of ideas that were thrown around here, and we'll get to that when we get to the list of demands. All right, they would remain anonymous. Each unit would be able to take any appropriate action around the set of demands that the GI would work out over the next 2 days. So basically, they started making cells. Now, when we talk about it's the creating of cells like this, I don't want to say terrorist cells because I don't think terrorism is what these guys were going for. I think it was just a subversion thing. Hey, we're a team and we're going to subvert over here. We're a team, we're going to subvert over here, in their own ways. And this is, just from reading this, it sounds like what they were doing were guerrilla cells, but not necessarily based on violence, but based on sabotage, which I don't know. This goes back to what's his name, who ended up stopping a destroyer from going out with a paint chipper, stuff like that. A guy he dropped a paint chipper into the engine and somehow it broke a fucking destroyer for 8 months. Which really that's on the engineer's fault. That's not on the private's fault for dropping a paint stripper. All right. At this point, a few GIs left the meeting, obviously upset that they set up a counter meeting at a dormitory at Oklahoma State the next day. So apparently some people showed up and was like, "What? I fucking love the Army. Fuck these guys." However, most GIs remained at the ranch and exhibited some enthusiasm for the project. By Sunday afternoon, a set of 12 demands had been agreed upon, and they were the following. So we've got 12 demands that we're going to go through, and we'll talk about them as we go through. I just want you to understand, at these things, more than likely, it was everybody come to this ranch and let's all get fucked up and just mellow out and talk about how much we hate the Army, and then come up with these movements against the Army. Fantastic. I wish more people would do that. More soldiers should get together and get drunk and say, you know what, fuck the Army. And I feel like some of them do, but then they go to their jobs again the next day because, let's be honest, none of us are drafted. And it's not that hard to get out of the Army. You can finish up your contract or whatever, but you kind of knew what you were getting into when you joined. Back then it was draftees, man. And I'm sorry, if you get forced to carry a gun in a foreign country that you want nothing to do with, I think you have you have a duty to tell people to go fuck themselves. You have a duty to yourself and to your fellow soldiers and to America to say go fuck yourselves in any way, shape, or form. All right. Number 1, we demand free and open purchase of marijuana in the mess halls and the PX. Number 1, we all want to get stoned. Guarantee that there's that there is a joint being rolled on top of the list of demands as they write them down. Number 2, we demand the right of black, brown, yellow, and red GIs to form their own armies. I do not know what they mean by that, and that whole concept is a little concerning to me. Not in a I don't want the black people to have some kind of, militant front or armed defensive front or something along those lines. I just don't know, are they all still federal armies, or is everybody just making racial enclaves? Because that's not good either. I get it, you guys were drafted, but let's not all create our own armies. I just don't know how they think that'll work. Unless they think it's just all the black soldiers are going to be over here, all the white soldiers over here, the various colors and ethnicities will go about their own thing, which honestly is going to create more problems. As I said, we are a melting pot. We not in the Army anymore, but the Army is a melting pot, and it is a way to force a lot of people from all walks of life together. Other than the super rich people, you're not going to find too many of those. And when you do, they're already officers and they're pricks and you're never going to talk to them anyway. Most of the people you talk to are going to be like, oh, I'm from New York and broke. You're from California and broke? Oh, cool. Let's talk about this. So, sorry, let's keep going. The demand that uniforms be abolished. Since GIs paid for uniforms, we ought to pick our own styles. 100% agree. I would love to be showing up to PT every day in just some the undershirt, the beater shirt, and a pair of gym shorts. Man, the new Army PTs are pretty nice. I gotta say, those gray ones that were all polyester and heavy. Ugh, this thing. I don't know who greased whose palm to get that one, but somebody made a shitload of money making just the obviously worst PT, physical training uniforms ever. We demand that hair can be any length, but not less than 3 inches. Persons with shorter hair should be busted for indecent exposure. So I apologize to all of you for being so indecent with my technically in regs military hair. I just like having my hair short because I don't have to fuck with it too much. So it's kind of sticking up right now. All right, we demand a descending pay schedule where E1s would receive $3,000 a month and O10s would get $143 a month. Now, I can kind of get behind some of this. I definitely think that generals don't need to make as much money. They don't need, like, once you hit colonel, that's it. You be OSIT and all the pay grades are the same going up. Because then you've got the people who actually, then you've got the people who just want power. You know what? There's no perfect suggestion. This certainly is a suggestion. I cannot imagine, did you hear about Johnson? He got promoted to sergeant. Oh, that poor bastard. How's he going to feed his wife and kids? And then you find Sergeant Johnson, drunk driving, so he gets busted down to E1. Busted down to E1 and forcibly retired. Sweet, I'm going to make $3,000 a month now for the rest of my life. All right, we demand community control of officers and staff NCO clubs so they can be used as ethnic study centers, free schools, etc. Military bases have those now. I don't really think officer and enlisted clubs exist anymore, at least not in the way that they used to back then. There are not segregated areas. There's usually one. Here, they got rid of the O and the E clubs, and what they did is they built bowling alleys, and then everybody just hangs out at the bowling alley and gets drunk there. But military bases now, they do have spaces for schools and studies, and you just sign up for it and put stuff out that, hey, come by, we're going to do ethnic studies, we're going to do schooling, we're going to do whatever. You can do all of that on military bases now. So thumbs up, you guys got that one. We demand compulsory retirement at 25 years old. So again, they had to be really stoned while they're doing this, because where are generals coming from at this point? An army of E1s is the most frightening fucking thing that I can think of. And really the way that we get around this is we just don't draft anybody, because drafting people is fucking stupid. But compulsory retirement at 25 years old, hey, I'm in for it. I would have had 8 years in at that point, because they let me join at the age of 17, because why not have child soldiers, I guess, right? We demand issuance of government credit cards good at over 10,000 federal installations in place of military IDs. So instead of an identification card, here's a credit card, here's some debt. This is before credit scores, so it was a little bit different, I guess, but you can definitely get a credit card as an E1 now. You might not want it, though. All right. So this last one is fun, because it's kind of they had me in the first half here. So number 9, we demand that stockades be turned into rehabilitation centers for lifers and officers. So yeah, not a rehab center for people who might need any kind of other, not a re-education. Well, I guess it is a re-education center for all the lifers and the officers, and really, this should exist in some way, shape, or form. I know some bases do have so you're going back to civilian life. Here's what to expect and here's what to do. But certainly you all need to just sit the fuck down and be re-educated into not thinking everything, not looking at every problem as a nail because you have a hammer. That's the kind of training that they need. But instead, what we have now is people get out and they just make racist t-shirt companies. We demand that 50% of all military personnel at all ranks be women. I can get behind that, I guess. Number 11, we demand peace. A lot of things came before number 11. Weed being the first one, which as somebody who enjoys smoking weed, I get. But I feel peace should have been the first one. We demand that the President of the United States be replaced with a statue. I can only imagine the debate happening over what kind of statue to put up there. I've been thinking about it. I thought of, you remember there's that state that had the they had the 10 Commandments outside of the courthouse. So the Church of Satan sued to have a giant Satan statue. I would go with the Satan statue, maybe a Cthulhu statue, something otherworldly, and just when you look at it, it gives you existential dread that you can't properly understand. that's what I would go with here. So, but hey, sound off down in the comments about what you would what you would want. The meeting broke up in orderly fashion at about 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. A delegate, Private Brown, expressed the feeling of many when he said, "We got them brass beat this time. We know who they are, and they don't know us. I'm sure hundreds of GIs will turn to Mom and, talk to their friends and get it on." Another unidentified GI was overheard to say he was planning to get the dope on his colonel's sex life and financial dealings so that his chapter of Mom could begin a program of blackmail and psychological warfare immediately. Such initiative and originality was typical in a 3-day meeting. I fully support that. Absolutely fucking turn your colonels out if they're doing some illicit, illegal shit like that. Fuck it. They're colonels. Go fuck themselves. They shouldn't be making all that money anyway. The privates should, right? So that's, again, like I said, sometimes what we're reading here, like, you got to read all the theory because sometimes it's bad ideas. A lot of these were not very great ideas. But you know what? People got together. They felt solidarity with one another. They came up with some plans, and maybe some of them managed to execute some plans, maybe not. And I'm not going to say that they, that this is why we lost, this is why we were expelled from Vietnam, or this is that they had some lasting damage, or lasting, I don't want to say damage, but, lasting influence over anything in the military at the time. And maybe they did, maybe they radicalized other people to get out or to, kind of get away from these things. I don't know. Not every idea that gets written down is a good one, and that's perfectly fine. But what's really important here, though, is that we can see that people were getting together, and they were getting together against the military, and they were getting together for peace, for equality, in whatever ways that they knew how. And I gotta say, and this is 1972, 1973. This is 50 years ago or so. This is within some kind of recent memory of this. And, it's nice. I like going back and finding these things and seeing how, the struggles back then are the struggles now. And in some ways it's disheartening because in a lot of ways the military has gotten worse, but also it's heartening to see that like when you push people to a breaking point, because nobody really talks about like during Vietnam, like how, and why I read this, during Vietnam, people were drafted and they were doing everything they could to get out. Like there were stockade riots when people were like, no, I'm not going to fucking Vietnam. There are all kinds of different things like that. And I support all of that, which is why I've never been Donald Trump is a draft dodger. Fucking good. Fuck the draft. Fuck the Vietnam War. No reason to go die in a rice paddy overseas. Or there's no reason to go die fighting communism in another country for some fucking reason. Like, none of it made any sense. So I really like that we were able to, reach back and find a lot of these things and see some of the conversations that they were having. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, all those things that the YouTubers say. And we'll talk to you next week.